So let me spend a few minutes talking about what happened here going on 2 weeks now. So first, let me start by saying cybersecurity is of paramount importance to Burlington Electric, just as it's of paramount importance to every utility in the United States, every utility in Vermont, large or small. It's something that is part of our strategic plan to improve our cybersecurity posture. It is something that we have done a lot of work on over the last couple of years. When we did our IT reorganization about almost 2 years ago now, and hired Sue Fritz as our IT director, it's one of the first things she is our IT director and cybersecurity director for the entire enterprise. She elevated our cybersecurity posture very early on and has taken steps in, I would say, over the last year to do even more there. Generally, we don't talk about the specifics of our cybersecurity measures in public because we don't want to give a roadmap to folks who might want to break in, and so I won't go into a lot of the technical details in this session. But if that's something that folks want to know about, happy to talk about that in a executive session, kind of covered under information that shouldn't be shared. But generally speaking, we are receiving updated virus, malware definitions from a lot of sources on a regular basis. We subscribe to services where we're getting updated definitions, and we also get them from the federal government. So Thursday, the 29th of December, we received an alert from the Department of Homeland Security that gave us new information to look for in our scans of our network. Those are called, the technical term is indicators of compromise, IOCs. It doesn't mean that there's a compromise. It means that this is suspicious. Be on the lookout for it. So we uploaded those to our system, started scanning for them on Thursday the 29th, scanned kind of scanned through the night. On Friday morning, when an employee was going to check email at yahoo.com, the system picked up what it saw as suspicious traffic between the computer the employee was using and an IP address listed in the IOCs, the indicators of compromise, which the DHS put out. So our system intercepted that traffic, and Sue Fritz and her team moved quickly to isolate that machine and get it off our network. Really importantly, that computer was not on our grid network, was not on our grid control network. It's on our business network. And at no time were the grid control systems in any danger, and because the machine was just not connected to that system and never would be. More importantly, there were no indication of compromise of any of our systems and no indication of compromise of any of our customer information. And subsequent review of this has not proven to have any indication of either of those. When we found this information, and after our IT department isolated the machine, we followed the federal guidelines and reported this. They were looking for instances where companies were seeing suspicious traffic on between computers and IP addresses, and so we reported it very dutifully to the federal government. A very standard report. The federal government took the information, this was on Friday the 30th, and said, thank you very much, that's exactly what we were looking for. We filed our report, and that was kind of it. At that point, they were going to get back to us if they had further questions. And to be clear, the DHS was asking thousands and thousands of utilities to do the same kind of scan, and frankly, there's no indication that this traffic was targeted at BED, was targeted to the utility sector, or was targeted really anywhere. That's kind of subsequent investigation found that. So we filed our report, everybody packed up, started to go home for the long holiday weekend. About 8:15, it was actually 8:18 on the Friday night. I got a phone call from somebody at another utility asking in a very kind of panicked way, has your network been hacked? Has your grid been hacked? And I was like, what are you talking about? And they were saying there's a report out that the Russians have penetrated the electric grid through a Vermont utility. And at that point, I didn't know if there was some new information, but I knew we'd filed the report earlier in the day. So I said, I'll get back to you. A bunch of calls started to happen between me and other employees, and we quickly figured out that nothing new had changed, but in fact, we had that report that we had filed earlier had been leaked inaccurately to the Washington Post, who filed a story they filed a story before they even called us to check. They subsequently updated their story when they listed Burlington Electric and said they hadn't gotten in touch with us yet. But we found they called 10 minutes after the story had originally been posted. So they took an inaccurate leak and of, I would say, significant international consequence. I mean, Russians penetrating the electric grid is a fairly meaningful story, and reported it without confirming it with the utility. So that set off a cascade of events that stretched literally 7.5 days. We immediately moved to put a statement out to say that the computer was not connected. We later updated that to say that there's no indication of compromise, et cetera. You've seen all of that. But once a story like that gets out, it's like wildfire on the internet. And so we, with the great help of Mike Kanarick and Destiny Vital, we did as many media interviews as we could. We retweeted a lot of things. We tried to get the word out on every channel we could. We estimate that we did 50 media interviews. I got really good at saying the same thing over and over again, but I think in the end, what a lot of folks said is that, and I'm proud to report that our team followed the right protocol and did the right thing. Unfortunately, this story got away, not because of anything BED did, but because someone in the federal government decided to leak the information without understanding it, and someone in a major national press operation decided to report it without confirming it. I've heard, I've read in subsequent reports, I've never heard this directly from the feds, but I think other reports have indicated that there's no real indication the Russians were ever involved in this. And it just goes to show it shows a lot of things, but I'm pleased that we were able to do our part to push back on that story, correct the record. Our immediate concern was for our customers, for fear that, oh boy, we're in the middle of a winter night, is our power going to go out? And I can tell you that our systems are, we take many measures to protect our systems from this kind of outside intrusion. And that cybersecurity is never a snapshot in time. This is a living thing that changes literally every day, as the bad actors out there are always updating their methods. We have to stay a few steps ahead of them. So I will tell you that that's what we've been doing, continue to do, and I certainly hope that nothing like this happens again in the future. And if it does, you'll hear from us first. That's the key. Whether it's good news or bad news, we take pride in delivering that news to our customers openly and transparently, and not through the Washington Post.